Amy, whenever you want me to get started, you let me know.
Madam Chair, we have quorum. You're ready.
Awesome. Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the MAG Regional Domestic Violence Council, and happy 25-year anniversary. This meeting is now called to order. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube as a way for members of the public to participate. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when you're making a comment or asking a question. I will ask that you keep your microphones on mute when you are not speaking. We will now begin the meeting with roll call of all members.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. When I call your name, please unmute and let us know your name and affiliation. Patricia Abede Young. Thank you. Celeste Adams. Here. Zach Altman. Emily Karen.
Here, victim advocate with the Gilbert Police Department.
Thank you. Tanya Runtan as a proxy for Joshua Clark.
Tanya Runtan from the Maricopa County Attorney's Office.
Thank you. Councilmember Klein.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Ellis is still in transit. Will be here shortly. Chair Ernst.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedel.
Present.
Thank you. Cindy Garcia.
Present. Muy chicanos por la causa.
Thank you. Laura Guild.
Present.
Thank you. Christine Hahn McDonald.
Present.
Thank you. Elizabeth Herbert. Samantha Hinchy. Councilmember Hodge.
Present.
Thank you. Marilyn Kasanik.
Present.
Thank you. Patricia Clark. Councilmember Loretano. Andrew Lefevre.
Present.
Thank you. Christina Blee as proxy for Kevin Mattingly. Councilmember Anita Norton.
Present.
Thank you. Amy Offenberg.
Present.
Thank you. Carol Park Aiden. Chris Charlo.
Present.
Thank you. Monica Garcia as a proxy for Melissa Thomas.
Present with the Glendale Family Advocacy Center.
Thank you. Councilmember Tilke.
Here.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, next is our call to the audience. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. Members of the public can submit written comments via the MAG website up to 2 hours prior to the meeting. Amy, do we have any written comments for this item?
Madam Chair, I don't believe we have any written comments for this item submitted online or received in person so far. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So item number 3, there is no information that was submitted as well. Item number 4, our next item is the approval of the August 1st, 2024 meeting minutes. Does any member of the council have any questions? Seeing none. Staff, do we have any written comments for this item?
Madam Chair, we do not.
All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hodge seconds.
Thank you. We have a motion from Ally and a second from, I did not hear who the second was.
That was Councilmember Hodge online.
Thank you, Councilmember Hodge. We will now take a voice vote. Members participating online can take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, I completely understand, we will conduct a roll call vote. Members, please leave your camera on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote from members? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Amy, can you take a roll call vote of members participating virtually who did not participate in the voice count?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. Councilmember Friedel, please. How do you vote? Councilmember Friedel? So you're still muted? Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. With the motion and a second, the motion passes. Thank you all for the motion and it carries. All right. Next, the voices and stories of survivors are central to the work we do. Their experiences illustrate what needs to be fixed and inspire us to make the changes needed to keep survivors safe and hold abusers accountable. We are joined today by a survivor to share her story with us. The floor is yours.
Hello, thank you for having me. Hi, I'm Selena Meadows. I am a speaker for the Arizona Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence. I'm part of their Speakers Bureau. Today I'll be sharing some of my story. I always say that unfortunately it's like the tip of the iceberg in the short time that we share. And I'll focus, I guess you'd say, more or less on the years leading to our successful escape. So my children and I, and also our animals, were all victims of domestic violence by the hands of my ex-husband. In this 12-year relationship, the only way I could really describe it is a slow boil. Within the slow boil, we had subtle steps out of our comfort zones, our boundaries, and our identities. Much of our identities were curated to more or less circle around his needs and his desires. That became our dynamic. Our family dynamic became consumed with just toxic abuse and a way that it normalized the abuse for my children. Many of the years, as far as it leading to an escalation, my children and I felt like we had no way out, and a lot of the abuse supported that. So within the last, I would say, 4 years leading up to our safe escape, nearly all of my resources and support groups were limited. So for the first time ever, when my ex-husband decided to join the military, it was the first time I was not the breadwinner. We had 3 children under 3. All of our support system were away from us, and all of our benefits and our resources funneled through him. Within this time, the isolation increased, and so did the abuse. I remember just subtle things within the abuse, as far as abuse slowly started to happen in front of other people. The bittersweet nature of this was, okay, someone's finally seeing what's going on. Unfortunately, that still wasn't enough. I remember upon his graduation, there was a Green Beret ceremony, and he pointed to an individual and said, "Look it, I'm untouchable." He just beat his wife last night, and he's still walking across that stage. Unfortunately, this led to another failed escape of mine. Within the days to follow, he went to Halo School, which put me in a span of excitement, thinking, okay, this is the time. Unfortunately, how fate's had it, I had to go and undergo an emergency hysterectomy, and I could no longer rely on that plan. Unfortunately, I did not securely cover up all of my tracks. Upon his return, I and the children went under more abuse. My abuse expanded extremely into certain zones that I had never once thought it could go. That said, I had an enormous amount of injuries and complications circling around my surgery. For the first time ever, I was attacked in front of other soldiers, and I thought for sure this would be our way out. Unfortunately, that was not. I was then made to drive 10 hours from North Carolina to Florida, where our new station would be. That said, things got worse. We no longer lived on post. We were now lived in a more secluded areas, nearly basically centered in the woods. We had no access to public transportation. Him being a mechanic nearly 7 years before joining the military, he would disable our vehicle. And he made an effort for every single city we went to befriend the police department. As he was an international competition shooter, he would offer his services and training. He would then reinforce me having no way out by asking if I would what am I going to tell his friends when abuse happened? Unfortunately, the the complications from the hysterectomy continued with the abuse. Eventually, I had to get chemically cauterized to stop the bleeding 6 months after. I thought for sure, okay, the doctors, they will report this. Unfortunately, all of my doctor's appointments, he accompanied me, and he required me to print out all of my doctor's appointments summaries. He would check, are you safe at home questions. Eventually, I came to the realization that I could not be everywhere at once. Upon his first and only deployment, I was moments too late to save our 18-month-old German Shepherd. She was the only one I was unable to get out of our home. I remember this sent me into a tailspin, and I was frozen in fear because all I could remember is being told, if you try to leave, I will kill everything you love. In this space, I decided to seek therapy. And I knew this, if I wasn't emotionally out, I wasn't out. And it wasn't the relationship between him and I, but it was a relationship with myself. I knew that in order for me to have a successful escape, I needed to be in a better space, something that wasn't filled with doubt and fear, because those places freedom could not exist. Upon his return, unfortunately, things escalated. During the time he deployed, he left me without a power of attorney to hinder any type of escape. He took all the courts and he sporadically funded a PayPal court with all of our daily necessities like food. Again, our court was disabled and I had to rely on certain few folks that I can trust, and the times individuals who would try to help would also unfortunately be part of a foiled escape. So I became more quiet. I became more recluse within our safety. And upon his returning, this escalated. Unfortunately, our child at the time, he was 3, almost 4, was almost intentionally murdered in front of everyone on the military base. No one would help me. I was able to save my child, but no one would come to our rescue, even avoiding the situation. MPs were not called. And within a day or two to follow, he was sent to sniper school. I thought for sure, okay, this time I'll be able to get out this time. Unfortunately, which it became obvious through conversations, our house was under some level of surveillance, both digitally and physically. He found out, he went AWOL, and he returned to, he drove 10 hours and returned to Florida. And a lot of things went on that day, that weekend rather, to the point where I snuck and left messages on the therapist's phone that I had been sneaking to for the past 6 months. At this point in time, I disclosed a lot more than I would do. Leaving subtle clues previously was not an option because our lives depended on it. I went full disclosure and I was told to reach out to the Air Force Base, who at that time received all of the domestic violence incidents within the Special Forces spouses. That said, this is where reality set in. Living in the toxic normality that we lived in, I had no clue of how much danger we truly were in until I received a call and told I had 24 hours to get me and the children as far away as possible, possibly across the country. Unfortunately, at that time, I had to fund my own escape. That said, my injuries were also so horrible that I could not drive. Luckily for me, I was able to call my dad. My dad, no questions asked, flew out to Florida and drove my children and I 25 straight hours back to Arizona. That said, on the way to Arizona, I was unable to get into a shelter. Even with an Air Force colonel assisting me, it took me 4 months to get into a DV shelter, putting everyone around me in danger. We had active search parties and other resources he tapped into to continue his abuse, stalking, and also abuse through the courts, other types of ways and maneuvers to get to us. It was very clear he had no love for us. He was not in love with us. He was in control with us, and he lost it. Eventually, the children and I were put into domestic violence shelters. We unfortunately had to stay there for a period of time of spanning over about a year due to his stalking. We were found at one of those shelters, and unfortunately, this was the reality that made me see how critical it was to share my voice. At this point in time, we were in hiding, and I realized that wasn't something that was an option for us. I decided to make ourselves bigger in a way that I was able to share my voice with other entities and really lean into the spaces of those individuals who were able to help us when they could. That said, I was able to reach out to a local news station here in Arizona, and they were able to give us just that little bit of safety by having us in plain sight. That said, even with an enormous amount of support from then the late Senator McCain in his office, we had so many uphill battles. This, however, did allow me to be able to be in a position to help change child abuse and domestic violence policies for his unit. They modeled that much of that military base, and then Senator Gillibrand's office invited me into helping with now is the Military Funding Protections Act of 2018. Sharing my voice, I realized the impact, not only the impact, but just understanding the changes, not only personal, but on a systems level. I then joined the Arizona Coalition to become a speaker and the Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice to help with legislative changes. I was able to add my voice to the Trauma Recovery Center bill, which was written into law, the 2594 Order of Protection, HB 2604. And currently I'm helping with victims' compensation and advocating for survivors' Bill of Rights on a national level. I am now the Arizona State Manager of Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice, and also a national organizing manager with Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice. In this space, I look to make certain that I give the opportunity of those like myself to not only turn self-advocacy into systems advocacy, but also bring meaningful change into these spaces. I know for myself, just understanding that these resources unlock so much of a new reality, a new normacy, and the biggest thing, healing. Healing is not a destination, nor is it a time frame. It is a lifestyle, it's a way of life, and that has to be curated with support, resources, and tools to be lifelong lasting. That said, I know for us, especially when it came to rebuilding our house, which I feel like our home, I tell people, it's like rebuilding a home inside of a hurricane. Everything's constantly moving. But in that center, we're able to lean on things like the Women's Study Voucher, which was a collaboration between the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual Domestic Violence, City of Phoenix Housing, AmeriCorps, and ASU School of Social Work. That was one of our central pieces to rebuilding our life. I was able to do exactly what that voucher was set out for. I was able to rebuild our life. My children all were able to continue their care as far as weekly trauma therapy, thanks to Child Help in a grant, so we wouldn't have to rely on utilizing services through our abuser. We were able to lean on agencies like the Humane Society and the Arizona Animal Welfare League, who allowed me to curate a homeschool schedule around their healing and their empathy, because unfortunately, my children, much of their empathy was sacrificed for survival. That said, being able to rebuild their emotional defaults was everything. It has now prepared them in a way that they can rely on tools and not become a liability to themselves or others as they get older. That said, these were critical tools to rebuilding our life and rebuilding and getting to a place of independence. What I say here is we are all part of someone's next step out. It's a slow boil in, and oftentimes it's a slow boil out. And every single entity in here can be someone's next step. So I thank you all for all the work you do. And I always like to say that you never know how abuse looks because it has no identity. And the biggest thing that you can do is just support and believe. Even when things are not moving at your pace, they're moving. Thank you.
Selena, thank you so much for spending your afternoon here today with us and sharing your story. I'm in awe of all the work that you have done, and appreciate you sharing the successes that you have made for other women who are facing similar situations. So awesome job. We appreciate the courage it takes and are grateful for you to, again, spend your afternoon with us today. Do any of our members have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I would like to take a moment to thank Samantha as well for connecting us with Selena. She's an amazing speaker, and so thankful for her time and thankful to Samantha for introducing us. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. There are a number of survivor stories on the MAG website as well. Please do take a look at that. If you go to the MAG website, azmag.gov, click on programs and then domestic violence. Also at the end of this presentation, we have a QR code so you can go to it straight from that link. I'd like to thank folks, including Samantha and so many others who shared their stories with us. It was the idea of this council at your last meeting in August to collect stories. And I think it's critically important to keep the voices of people in front of us because they are why we're doing this work. And hearing their stories further inspires us and helps us to recommit to the hard work that still needs to be done. So thank you to everyone who's able to share stories. If you have additional stories to share, please let us know. It's not too late. We'd love to be able to share your stories and raise more awareness about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. All right. Seems odd to move on from that story, but we will do it anyways. So our next item focuses on the origins of this committee. We were formed due to the intense commitment to strengthen the region's response to domestic violence when a local woman, Laura Munoz, was killed by her abusive husband in front of their children. Peggy Blitzen, who I recently, thank you, Bill. I never say people's names right. Sorry, Peggy. I recently met her, and again, in awe. Then was the council member for the city of Phoenix, was one of the champions for creating this committee. She was the founding chair and led the early achievements of this committee. Unfortunately, Peggy cannot be with us today. Would any members of this committee or public like to share about the origins of the council? I believe you will find in the handouts a handout that goes over all of the accomplishments in the past 25 years. If you haven't had the opportunity, I'll give you just a couple minutes just to look through it. And if anybody has any comments on that, take some comments.
Madam Chair, we do have a video in just a few moments that we'll share that helps to animate this document in terms of the milestones. I can share with you from Peggy's comments at Management Committee and Regional Council that she talked about how when the tragedy occurred with Laura Munoz, she couldn't access shelter because she had 6 children. And at that time, the shelters just couldn't accommodate that many children. So she went back home to her abusive husband out of no other choice, and he killed her in front of her children. So Councilmember Peggy Bilstein came to the MAG Regional Council at that time, and she really invoked their spirit of regionalism as they've approached other matters. So for example, transportation. Roads don't stop and end at different borders, and unfortunately domestic violence doesn't either. And she said that as a region, we learned to rally around transportation, but then they applied that same spirit of coordination and collaboration to domestic violence. And so when the Domestic Violence Council was formed back in 1999, it was one of the first and largest coordinating bodies of its kind in the entire country. And the work that it did is just absolutely amazing. And it was groundbreaking in terms of really bringing people together. Shortly thereafter, the state of Arizona also formed a commission to violence. And a lot of the members from our MAG Regional Domestic Violence Council also were serving on the state's council. So I think the region really demonstrated a lot of leadership in that space. And it's impressive to take a look at the people who are on that original committee and to see the numbers of people who are still with us today and actually serving on this committee. And Laura, I know that you're one of the first. Do you want to jump in?
Well, I just want to acknowledge that when MAG, the initial response came from the city of Phoenix because it was a city of Phoenix crime. It happened there. And so they were very responsive in pulling people together and forming a coordinated effort to try to address this issue from its many, many different sides. And also that led to really the initiation of the Family Advocacy Center for Phoenix. From there, it just seemed to make sense that this isn't just a city of Phoenix issue. So MAG was willing to step in and create a cross county kind of response. So
Thank you.
that's how it happens.
Thank you very much, Laura. But it's really to the credit of all of the council members and of the diverse partners coming together. Over the years, we've addressed very different topics such as addressing domestic violence through the healthcare system, through the criminal justice system, youth, teens, and most recently, older adults. And because domestic violence happens in all corners of the region, it happens in all corners and in all sectors. And so it takes really that multidisciplinary, holistic approach to adequately begin to respond to it. And of course, there's so much work still remaining to be done, but so much work has been done thanks to the work of this council and many others. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
And
And I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Sorry, online we have Councilmember Hodge and then Marilyn Kasanik with their hands raised. Councilmember Hodge, would you like to share?
yes, I would like to. I just wanted to tell the speaker, it's dear and near to my heart. Thank you so much for all the work that you do every time that you go out, every time that your voice is heard. It helps a woman whose voice is silent. In 2015, I had a coworker who sat next to me for 10 years. She was one of my best friends, and her boyfriend, she broke up with him, and he came to her house. He broke into her house, waited for her and her daughter to come home, and he began to stab her in front of her 7-year-old daughter, and he killed her in front of her daughter. And what only her last words she said was, "Please close your eyes and close your ears." And that was the last thing she said out of her mouth. So this committee means near and dear to my heart. And I'll say her name so it'll always be remembered. Her name is Keisha. And Keisha, I sit on this committee for her. So I just wanted to put that out there, that this is always going to be near and dear to my heart. And 25 years into it, I mean, she died in 2015. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Hodge, for sharing that moving story. Marilyn, would you like to share?
Well, I just wanted to say that, Peggy Bilstein has been such a champion for domestic violence. I served with her. She was chair of the Governor's Council on Domestic Violence, and she invited us to be a part of it, I think, because, we had talked to her about the importance of realizing that domestic violence doesn't end at a certain age, but continues on. We had already developed the Doves program, but we needed a place, housing for victims of domestic violence. We don't do it. It's not a shelter, but it's transitional housing. And Peggy was instrumental in getting us a forgivable loan from the city of Phoenix that allowed us to purchase a 19-unit apartment complex. And I don't know if Melissa's in the room, Michelle's in the room, but we've probably served up to 200 individuals over the years. And this DOVES was the very first late life domestic violence program in the whole United States. And I think to a great extent, we need to give our thanks to Peggy Bilstein for what an incredible leader she was and is in the field of domestic violence and homelessness.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Madam Chair.
Thank you both for sharing that. So moving to item number 7. Now is the time to share our story. A number of us have served on the council for a long time, for some decades. We have worked hard together and accomplished a lot. In just a few moments, I'll open the floor for all to share their perspectives on the Domestic Violence Council. We will have committee members share, followed by members of the public. We will start with a brief video about the timeline and the achievements of this council. I will also call your attention to something I already called your attention to, the milestone documents that was shared with the agenda packet as available in hard copy for those attending in person. Amy?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Tyler, we're ready for the video whenever you are. Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to thank Juan and our staff for creating that video. He's worked really, really hard to make it beautiful and meaningful for you. And I'd also like to thank Kara on our team. She spent literally weeks and weeks combing through old minutes, grant proposals, any kind of document that she could put her hands on. We had a good start with the first 10 years from that anniversary, but we had to fill in 15 years. And she worked really hard to make that happen. And that resulted in the milestone document that you see in front of you. And that became the foundation for the video. So thank you again to Juan.
Once again, shall we thank Juan for all of his work from the staff at MAG. Thank you, Amy, for everything you've done as well. First, I'd like to share my thoughts on the highlights of the council's work and the impact, excuse me, and the impact that we've made and insights about what has been successful. So I actually first started learning about the work surrounding domestic violence when I started my bachelor's degree in social work, and the at the time Domestic Violence Council, or sorry, get the name of what you used to be called, the Arizona Coalition Against Domestic Violence. I'm old, give me a moment. It'll come back to me. And Doreen, you all might remember Doreen, was my first teacher, and an amazing educator. She shared a wealth of information, but also brought it into reality, and something that was, you know, you always hear rumors about what domestic violence looks like, and she was an amazing teacher. So to Doreen, thank you. And from there, I became a victim advocate at the county attorney's office and worked with domestic violence victims for 6 years, both at the lowest level, sort of misdemeanor violations of order of protections, all the way up to the homicide cases. And some of the most resilient people I have ever met were the men and women who were the victims on those cases. And they taught me a lot. Then I took a job with the City of Phoenix Fire Department as their trainer. Sorry, I get emotional. I don't know why. So I took a job with them, and I was responsible for training. And the title of their training was the MAG Domestic Violence Training, Regional Training. And MAG had made this decision that, right, if you're going to have crisis response teams going out on domestic violence, not only should police officers be responding with a certain level of knowledge and understanding of domestic violence, those who go and serve those victims afterwards need to have that same structure and knowledge. And it was also a decision that we were going across city lines, and we wanted to make sure and have the same expectations that everybody who responded, no matter what city they responded in, that they had a certain level of knowledge and understanding of, one, what they could possibly be witnessing, seeing, and hearing and being present for. And two, where are the resources and how do you help someone? And most importantly, letting the victim make the choice of what they wanted to do, which is often the hard time and a hard thing to do when you come into a field and you want to be the helper. You want to make everything good, and you're sitting across from a victim and they're like, I'm staying. And really respecting that person's knowledge of their life and what they're facing and the possible life sentence that they're choosing when they do choose to leave. I met Bloom 365 being on this council and was touched by a story that they told when they said they were doing outreach at a high school and on healthy relationships. And they had a student come up to them and say, I identify as someone who is the aggressor. And they were like, we didn't have any resources. And that has kind of been my motivation to really wanting to engage our youth in this, because I want them as the future to hopefully end it, to tell us how can we end it. And last year we had the opportunity to have a nighttime Domestic Violence Teen Council, where we had teens who were very busy. They were very busy on a lot of different councils, and they are interested in this work. And I think it is our duty to figure out how do we engage them and how do we get them so that maybe this council isn't needed ever. That's our goal. That's what this council was built for. And we can get there, but we need our youth to help us get there. I appreciate you listening to me. Now I'd like to invite Vice Chair Councilmember Ellis to share your highlights.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everybody is able to hear me. My experience with domestic violence began in the womb because my mom reported the story that when she was 8 months pregnant with me, how she got into an altercation with my dad at the time, and she was thrown forward on her stomach on a big basin of raw salt. And I'm still here to live and speak about that story. I came into this country when I was 17 years old from Haiti. And as you will imagine, it was really not taboo for these things to happen, whether between husband and wife and concubines and those that supported them. It was kind of part of the culture. And so when I came into this country, then it was different for me to started to realize that certain things are not normal. It's not right for certain things to happen. And by the time my mom and my sisters and brothers were here with my dad, I was about maybe 19. I asked my mom to divorce my dad. And my mom stated that she was the eldest of 6 out of 64 kids that her father had, that she will not give anyone of her sibling the impression that divorcing was the right thing to do after you are married. And so this is the product that I am of, a product that says that we are married for life, no matter what happened. And so as I grew and become a nurse and being at bedside of those who have been at the brunt and at the other end of this shady stick, I had to myself understand, what do I tell someone and how do I help them to get out? I worked my life around this subject to become literally a millionaire in order for me to put money behind this. I have given to Sojourner, Fresh Start, Dove in so many different capacities because I wanted to eradicate this thing. And over the years, every chance that I have gotten, when I'm downtown at the Zone, feeding the homeless, an organization that I had started over 20-something years ago, every girls and boys and men and women that I've encountered who are on the street because of this issue, I had to look at them in the face and say, how can I get you out and how can I help you? Resources was always the thing that I felt that was needed in order for us to do this, to make sure it happened. And so I throw my life behind that. I go out and I ask and I beg and I ask everybody who wanted to hear. I told the story so we can raise money in order for us to stop this. But in 2018, I felt that my voice needed to be at a higher level. After a 21-day fast, I decided to enter a race to become the council member for the city of Chandler with one thing in mind, that I was going to be able to graft policies that will affect people's life at a level that I probably would have never been able to do by giving more money to this thing. And so it happened. That was the first place that the mayor looked at me and said, how would you like to serve on MAG? And I said, which one? And when he said domestic violence, I said, yes, count me in. And so I said yes to this because I know that my mom, myself, and my children, we needed to break the cycle of this in my family. And I truly believe we have. Because married within almost 30-something years, my husband, having been sick, pulled a gun to come after me. And I had to face that, living in a community where multi-million-dollar houses, I was sitting on the sidewalk waiting for the police to come because my husband was sick. And my son and my daughter at the time had to stand there with me. And you know what came to my mind at that time was, how did I get here? Having put so much money behind this issue, having helped so many people getting out, how did I come to this place? And this analogy came to my head. Have you ever taken a frog and put it in hot water? As soon as it hit that water, it's gonna jump out. But put that frog in a cold water over a stove, and you keep lighting it up slowly and warming that water, that frog gets comfortable in that water. And you can literally boil that frog until death. And I said at that moment, I will never be a victim, and I will never let another woman be called a victim. And so I walk away from that. And then now I'm finding myself on the council, making this decision. Our city had already started lots of work in that area. We have a commission against domestic violence. And literally their, budget was $1,200 a year. And I looked at that and I said, okay, first year it went up to 25. And now we are sitting at $10,000 a year. And it is my goal to empower that commission to go out and do work that I know they can do, whether it's at the schools where they speak to the students, whether it's in our community where they interact with other people to be able, because I will never want someone to serve on a commission where they are not effective in doing the work that we have asked them to do. And so I've also implored my colleagues, mayor and council, for us to start a vigil for domestic violence in the city of Chandler. And our second year anniversary is coming up on the 24th of November. And I'm inviting all of you who are here to show up. Because every single one of us who are listening or who are in this room know someone or have ourselves been encountered with this disease. And so it's important, it's incumbent on every single one of us to say no to it when we hear it, when we see it, and we have been part of it. So I want to thank you, Madam Chair, and my other colleague here on this board for the work that you have been doing in this area, giving me an opportunity not only to be part of this story of getting this thing better, but also to see it being eradicated out of our society. Thank you so much for letting me speak today.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellis. Do any of the committee members have any stories that they would like to share? Please, Councilmember.
I'll share, Madam Chair. It's interesting, and I'm so glad to see everyone is from a different community, but we're all a community in whole. And I'm from the community of El Mirage, which is small community compared to some of the other cities. But I actually started something even before I joined the regional council in El Mirage, and we call it El Mirage Cares. And but through the work of being on the council, I've been able to expand even further. We've offered various outreaches to our community. not just in domestic violence, but also in other areas that literally can contribute to domestic violence, mental health issues, teen dating violence, sexual assault, homelessness. But in the area of domestic violence, it affects every community. And I know that when I receive updates weekly on the crime stats, on what's happening in our courts, and domestic violence still stays there at the top as far as the number of calls, the number of orders of protection. So there's clearly still a lot more work that we all have to do. And I'm thankful that we're all here and that's our goal. I think one of the things is the continued outreach of bringing resources, encouraging, supporting the resources that are out there, and knowing that we need to even offer even more support because the shelters are full. But one of the things that is nice to know that even though they're full, they'll still keep working to try to find a safe place for victims of domestic violence, that we have more survivors. And I think that this council throughout our region has a really important work, and I'm really appreciative to be part of it. I do want to mention also, and I put some flyers in the, what do we call that room back there? The what?
They're in the Ocotillo room.
Okay, in the Ocotillo room. There are flyers on our walk. When hearing about the walk to end domestic violence that the regional council did early in the formation of the regional council, I just thought, I think that would be a great thing in El Mirage. So we are doing a walk to end domestic violence on October 19th. It will be our first, and it's something that I have the council, we have a new council coming in December. They're very much in support of this effort. So this is just the beginning of that, and reaching out and collaborating with a lot of the other resources and shelters here in the Valley to help in this work. So I thank you for the opportunity to be part of it.
Thank you, Councilmember Martin. And I'm sure we all hope that the weather is much cooler on October 19th. Fingers crossed. Councilmember Ellis, you mentioned that you would also just like to briefly discuss the increase in the timeline on order of protections. Would you like to address that real quick?
Yes, wanted to add the fact that we have worked on that bill very, very closely. It was one of our residents in Chandler, Miss Shante, who had approached me during COVID, and she herself is also have gone through domestic violence. Her mom had done the same thing, and so she wanted to break that cycle. So through the work that we have done together with legislature, we were able to pass that bill, and Governor Ducey signed it, that we have increased. One of the reasons why we wanted that time increase is because majority of the people, when they leave, sometimes they don't have time to do these kinds of things and they end up being homeless. And then we see them on the street now, and we have to deal with a whole compound effect of domestic violence. And so I'm so grateful that that bill passed, and I'm so grateful now that we are seeing that it is truly helping us alleviate some of these issues. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Appreciate that. Any other members on the council? Would you like to? Patricia?
I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I just went to watch the movie It Ends With Us a couple of weeks ago with my daughter. She's in college. And when I walked out of there, and I'm going to be emotional right now, it all came back to me what happened to me. It was like 30 years ago. And I looked at her and I said, I've been there. And she looked at me, you never told me that before, Mom. I said, I never wanted to. I said, but that's why I do what I do. Because I need to help people, and I got help when I needed it. And so it was like, you know, we just never had that. I mean, she knows I'm a victim advocate. She knows she can't spend the night at people's house. She knows how protective I am. But that has been, I've never shared with her that story. And I told her that night what happened. and it was quite an eye opening for her too. So just want to let you know that that movie is very. I mean, it just brought me back to that time, that place, that the scare, the pain, and for her to have to go through that. You know, it happened to her a couple of times, but it happened to us more than that. It took us quite a while to figure that out or to get help, but just wanted to share that. It's stuff with it. It ends with us.
Really appreciate you sharing that story. Thank you so much. Anyone online? Oh, I see Chris Charlo's reaching for the mic.
Oh,
Chris?
I just wanted, thank you, Madam Chair. I've been on this council a really long time, but I don't remember the year. That's how old I am. I remember being at the first walk and I still have the t-shirt. So quite a while, I've been able to be involved with the council. And on behalf of the city of Tempe, I just want to say that the council's direction and guidance, the affiliation with other cities from around the region is what has made our success in keeping domestic violence awareness at the forefront. And I remember one of the things that we did that really impacted me was when we did the affinity groups. As an advocate, this is your job, right? And your vocation is to help victims of crime. But to see the other disciplines come to the table, to hear why law enforcement is involved, to hear from the prosecutors, from the attorneys, was finally where I felt like, oh, this matters to people besides advocates, right? Like there are other voices that need to be involved so that we can work toward eradication of domestic violence. But with the council's guidance, the DV Council's guidance, we're finally in Tempe to the point where we have our own family advocacy center, which I honestly thought would never happen. Not because victims don't deserve it in our community, but we are a smaller community as well. And so I think that I've been so proud to be part of this council. I hope to be here for a little bit longer anyways. But I wanted to say that it's people that tell their stories that keep my fire burning. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. I know it's not easy, but it's what keeps us all going. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for sharing that. Congratulations on your Family Advocacy Center. And I recommend people apply for the chair position. It's pretty cool.
We went from, we went from one advocate to a team run by Anastasia. We have 7 now. We have a full trauma healing program, a dog, a partnership with ASU, support from our council, such as Councilmember Hodge. I can't believe it. And I think that, with competing issues in our communities, it's hard to keep the light on the victims because they're oftentimes not visible. And the story from our survivor earlier reminded me that one thing I think is really important to kind of reactivate, if you will, is the Employers Against Domestic Violence for stories just like that. So thank you.
Thank you. And I see Amy writing down notes. So thank you for that suggestion. I appreciate you. All right. I cannot see the members online. Are there any members online? Thank you, Amy. All right. Oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead, Laura.
Well, that the respect I have for Mag for taking this on 25 years ago, and Amy, you've been here every step. This has got to be one of the longest running and most underfunded endeavors that I've ever seen and been part of. And obviously Mag had the commitment. Governor's office stepped in and others stepped in, but you kept this going no matter what. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that. It was interesting because in my conversation with Peggy, who I met like 2 weeks ago, I think now, we're really close now. So I just say her first name because I butcher her last name. one of the things that we did talk about was the funding part and how that has impacted this council and MAG to be able to do maybe more. And so I think we lit Peggy's fire again. And so hopefully she will help us in looking at that. And I know that Amy and I have talked about it as well. So thank you, Laura, for being here and for everything that I've learned from you as well. Do any members of the public have any stories that they'd like to share? All right. Well, I appreciate you guys being here. At this point, I'd like to invite everyone here to gather for a group photo. This will be posted online and shared on social media. We'll go ahead and meet right here in the middle. Thank you.
We will need a few more folks to sit in the chairs.
Come on. I got all my shots.
Yes, I will. Excellent. Yes, I didn't know.
Amy,
Oh,
yes.
Oh, no, good. All people in the back. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we get one more person sitting in the chair? I learned. I'm wearing heels. Councilmember Christie. Hello. Thank you. Come on, Amy.
I'm sure when I was little cup. I'm sure.
I have the back rows. We're all standing cheers.
2 steps to the left. 2 steps, stop. 2 steps. Dance instructions on there. Test shot.
I was just.
Yes, you can have your eyes closed.
If we smile, but don't get up too open.
Right. 1, 2, 3.
One, 2, 3.
Guys. Good.
Only 2 shots.
We can do more if you want. I'm trying to.
I'm good. I know.
Because I've been online.
I've seen your. Yeah. I'm like.
And you're chill.
No, I don't. Yeah, I totally. I said that one. Hi.
It's for real.
All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order. In order to make sure that we respect everybody's time, we're gonna kind of move this along a little bit quicker. So item number 8 was writing tomorrow's story, and I just want to go ahead and turn over to Amy St. Peter, our Assistant Executive Director at MAG, to offer an overview of the efforts that are underway as part of the broader assessment of regional human services planning of MAG. Thank you, Amy. The floor is
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the council. Just want to let you know we are undergoing a regional human services assessment here at MAG. Some of you may have seen the survey that just went out that did close on Monday. Thank you so much to those who participated in that. We're also conducting interviews. So if you'd like to talk with me directly about what you see our role as MAG in this space, I would love to talk with you further and to be able to have a deeper understanding of what your priorities are. Perhaps at our next meeting, it would be great to really dig into what are the priorities of this council. Are they affinity groups? Is it Employers Against Domestic Violence? There's so many different ways that this group has and can address domestic violence. It'd be really, really good to have a deeper understanding of what would you like to do for the next 25 years. This council has accomplished a great deal in the last 25 years. Now's a great time to really take a moment to pause and consider what do we want to do in the years moving forward. So just want to give you a heads up about that activity, and please be thinking about that. So then at our next meeting, we can really start to dive into that together. But feel honored and just incredibly grateful to be able to undertake this important work with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that. Now, this was for action. Do we still want to take action on it, or do we want to go ahead and move this to the next agenda?
Madam Chair, thank you for that question. It was slated for possible action. I think it would be better suited for action at the next meeting.
Thank you. We will go ahead and move that to the next meeting. All right. All right, let's see here. So that leads us to item number 9, which are requests for future agenda items. Are there any requests for future agenda items? Councilmember Norton.
Madam Chair, I wanted to just bring up a year ago today at our, well, I don't know if it was exactly today, at our October meeting of last year, we had a speaker, and many of us were brought to tears with her message. And one of the things that we discussed after that was what is happening in our courts in regard to the victims. And it was suggested, and we talked about doing something, finding out some way that we can have more involvement, oversight, or some way to know that this isn't going to be a story that we're going to continue to hear. I know several members asked if we would actually be doing action versus just talking about it. And I would like to bring that back up. I know that I think shortly after that, there was something about there is some kind of court oversight committee, not part of MAG. But the thing is that committee was existing when what was happening to the victim was occurring. So that is not the answer in itself. And I would like to see us come up with something that we can initiate so that there's more. Otherwise, we will continue to hear these stories. And I think that's something that I think we can have an impact on.
Thank you, Councilmember Norton. If we could go ahead and continue to look into who maybe we could have come and present on what the courts are doing, the education that they get. I know that we have members from the city prosecutor's office, and I believe we have some members from the county prosecutor's office that have participated before. Maybe they can help us, or Mr. Andre?
Madam Chair, I believe Judge Reinstein oversees that committee for the courts. So if I can try and get a better understanding of what it is and what they do, and get that information to you, Amy.
Councilmember.
Actually, Andy, it's Judge Million in Tucson, who is the chair of CIDVIC, which is the Supreme Court's Committee on Impact of Domestic Violence on the Courts. Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. So what I hear is we're going on a road trip to Tucson. We've been. No problem.
We've been that she runs a fabulous program.
Awesome. All right. Well, maybe we'll ask them to come up here then. I guess the weather's no cooler down in Tucson. All right. So thank you for that suggestion, Councilmember Norton. I appreciate you bringing that back. Amy, please.
Madam Chair and the council, also just want to mention that the Arizona Department of Economic Security just received their Abuse in Later Life renewal grant. And so it might be great to have Jody Hector come back and offer an update in terms of what does that work look like continuing moving into the future. And I believe we have a recommendation from Councilmember Ellis for an agency that's addressing suicide prevention as well. And we've been talking about having her come to the next meeting. So I think we'll have some really good speakers and conversations at future meetings. And Madam Chair, Samantha has her hand raised as well.
Please.
Sorry, thank you. So just something that we've been hearing from programs just around the state. I was just in Mojave County 2 weeks ago, I think. And a lot of there's a lot of concern around mental health in the programs and substance abuse, but behavioral and mental health is a huge concern just across the state. So I just think maybe that's something that we can start having conversations about here in Maricopa County. So,
Madam Chair and members of the council, actually in thinking about the Regional Human Services Assessment Survey results, mental health is one of the top topics of interest, and that's absolutely something that this council could address as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for those suggestions. Any other suggestions before I move on? Yes, please.
January will be the 5th anniversary of the launch of AZ Point system. I think we just got data through the end of last year, so we wouldn't have 5 years of full data, but we should have some ability to provide some update on the impact that that system has had over the last couple of years at a meeting sometime next year.
That would be excellent. Thank you. Happy anniversary. I don't know what you say to that, but
Amy, for you, or for everybody on this council, we just got the next SCIP grant dollars from BJA, and that's the money that was provided to ACJC to distribute around the state dealing with safer communities and primarily gun violence prevention activities. It's very much designed to be put into stuff that would prevent things from happening in the first place. Once we're ready to launch that, I'll make sure I try and make sure you have that information to distribute, because we are eager to get money out into communities for projects that would be designed around getting messaging out. How do we help that? We actually are doing a project with Cox Communication around being safe with guns. So gun safety storage. If you have a firearm, what are you doing to make sure it's locked up and not accessible, so that bad things can't happen with it? But so we'd love to hear all kinds of great ideas to be able to put before our SCIP board for consideration when we go through that next round.
excellent. Thank you. All right, moving to item number 10. Does anyone have any brief updates or news to share with the committee? Please remember to send any photos from your facilities or staff and purple stories from survivors who and staff working to help them, and event information. I know I kind of jumped ahead, sorry. And don't forget, we have a QR code right up there to access all information about Awareness Month activities is on the screen. Please let us know if we can support you in any of the activities. And with that, this concludes our meeting, but not for our time together today. We invite everyone attending in person to join us for a celebration, a reception and celebration of our 25-year anniversary of the Regional Domestic Violence Council. We hope you will stay and celebrate with us. There is cake. Our next meeting is scheduled on December 5th at 2 p.m. I look forward to seeing you all. Great job, guys. 25 years.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, Amy. You are awesome.